European Union is not a political union. It is the union of the Illuminati goddess, which they wish to enslave the whole of Europe within. And it's extraordinary to me that there is not a bigger debate in Croatia at a political level and others about this sleepwalk into tyranny that this country is embarking upon. In Britain now, 75% of the laws that are introduced come not from the British Parliament, but from bureaucrats in Brussels, not elected people in the European Parliament. They're irrelevant. They're just there to give the impression there's some democracy, which is another tyranny called control or domination by the majority. I don't think that's freedom, me. So as we are losing our sovereignty and our ability to control our own lives within our own communities to the European Union, other people are saying, I'll have some of that. Huh? They want to break Europe up into regions to deunify in a unified response to the edifice of power in Brussels, and they've even produced the maps. This was one in a British newspaper. And what they do is they take parts of Britain and they put them in regions with parts of other countries. Again, deunify. Now, here's an irony. The organization that orchestrated, in my books I go into this in great detail, the organization that orchestrated the creation of the European Union was an organization called the Pan-Europa movement, the Pan-Europa goddess movement, headed by, stands back in irony, the Habsburg dynasty. Otto von Habsburg is still the head today, with its red cross and its 12 stars and the sun symbolism in the middle. So here's Croatia, the Croatian government, who are leading a country that removed the Habsburg control, and now they're handing it back to them and their networks that link into the Rothschilds without a gun being fired. And what is about to hit this country when that document is signed, people have no idea. The whole way of life of this country is finished within a matter of years. There's the European Union, controlled by bureaucrats in Brussels, unelected. 500 million people. And there's Croatia. Do you think it will have a say? Anybody think it will have an influence? And once you sign the document, Croatia becomes subject to anything they decide in the bureaucracy. And I'm told, I'm not here long enough to be an expert, I wouldn't claim to be, I wouldn't patronize you by saying I am, but from what I'm told, there's no debate worth the name going on in politics in Croatia between different political parties about going into the European Union. Well, they should be friggin' ashamed of themselves, given what they're about to impose upon this nation and upon this land. Why? Question I had last time I was here. Croatia's not in the European Union yet. What's the European Union flag flying on government buildings for? Because it's a done deal. To these people, you and the rest of the Croatian nation does not matter. You're just cattle. Just pawns in the game. Have a referendum and let them choose. Are you joking? They might say no. Now we talk about tanks and armies gathering on the border about to invade a country. Well, that's happening to Croatia now, except they're not tanks. they are piles and piles, mountains and mountains of legislation, sub-clauses, triplicates, fine detail dictating how everyone lives their lives, what they can do and what they can't do, what the government can do and can't do. Because any law, once you're in, passed by the Croatian parliament that is at odds with a law decided by bureaucrats in Brussels, then the law passed by the Croatian parliament becomes invalid. See, Britain went into the European community, now the European Union, thanks to that guy Ted Heath I mentioned earlier, signed us in as Prime Minister. And I've watched the totalitarian tiptoe of more and more centralisation, more and more legislation, more and more sub-clauses and regulations and rules, building up and building up and building up, year after year, month after month, decade after decade. And we kind of seen it happen right up to the present day. It's not been nice, but at least, you know, you've seen it happen. All of that is now piled up on the Croatian border. And all of that becomes the law that Croatian people must abide by, and governments, companies, individuals, the moment those documents are signed. Tidal wave. That's what it is. A tidal wave of legislation, of do's, don'ts, can'ts, musts, are about to devastate the freedom of this country to make its own choices. And no bloody debate.